We can talk more about sexuality and gender.
No! Woohoo! There's been to Agne. There she is. Hi, everybody. What is today? It's Wednesday, right? It's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. Whippy! Whippy! Yippee! Yippee! Whoopee! How is everybody doing on this day in July? July. We're not halfway through the summer. We're just in July. I hope everybody had a good 4th. I hope everybody is kind of feeling okay on this hump day. I hope, let's see, Linda, hello. V. Bata, hello. Hi, Maria. Where is everybody from? I want to know where everybody's from. I love to see all the time where people are from, because they come on here and they say, I'm from Texas, I'm from Wisconsin, I'm from Massachusetts, I'm from, oh, good. Somebody says they're doing amazing. KG Lamb, you're doing amazing. Bintu Agne, I'm doing great. I love that. Montreal James. Malaysia. Siti Hazazara is from Malaysia. Scottsdale, Arizona. I love that. I love Scottsdale. Nita Espada is from Long Island, New York. Kelly Ickley is from Columbus, Ohio. South Carolina, Calgary, Canada. K-Pat from Florida. Thinking of you in Florida. Mo Rooney, 2543 from Georgia. Oh, from Peru. Olympia, Washington. Wow, Peapack, New Jersey. Burlington, Vermont. I love this. New York City. I haven't been to New York since pre-pandemic. I'm due back. I hear the city is got an energy. I have a friend who was there last week and said it has an energy that's even better than before the pandemic. So I'm really hoping that businesses are feeling the love from New Yorkers, that people are up and back and going to restaurants and supporting local restaurants in New York, or actually everywhere. Ping Pong Food in Los Angeles. Whoa, just moved from Seattle. Ohio, Charleston, South Carolina. What a beautiful city that is, Lisa. I went there to give a speech a couple years ago, and I just loved it. Hyannisport. Hi! Say hi to my brothers. They're all in Hyannisport. Oh, thank you for joining from Hyannisport. Anyway, I just saw that our guest already is on there, and I was just kind of like breezing along here. He's like early. He's not even supposed to be here for one more minute. Michael Pollan, I'm trying to get on. Michael Pollan, I want to talk about you. I'm so excited to see you. I'm so excited to interview you. You're such a genius. You're such a, gosh, what is it? You're a life changer. You're an incredible writer. Michael Pollan, I want everybody to listen to this conversation because he's written 8 best-selling books. He's a teacher at Harvard, and he has written this new book, which is called This Is Your Mind on Plants. It's actually such a beautiful book. This is Your Mind on Plants. So if you are interested in plant medicine, he also wrote the book How to Change Your Mind. If you're interested in the psychedelic argument and conversation that's going on around this country, you will want to listen to Mr. Michael Pollan. So let me try to find him wherever he is. Let's see. There, no, that's not him. There, let's see, where is he? Michael Pollan says he's trying to get on, but I can't find him. But anyway, I hope you will listen to this conversation because it's so good. It's so good. I haven't even had it yet. I'm telling you, it's going to be so good because he's so smart. He's done so much research, and he's really an innovative writer, thinker, reporter, and he makes a really interesting case in here about opium, caffeine, and mescaline, and he talks a lot about it. Michael Pollan, what do I do?
Maybe send him a request.
I can send you a request, Michael Pollan. So please come on, Michael Pollan. He doesn't know what to do. Please ask to join. Please ask to join. Michael Pollan, please ask to join, and then I can let you on. Let's see. Have you made a request? Nope, you haven't. Michael Pollan, where are you? Love your blouse. Thank you. This was my Christmas present from my daughter. She bought, is he pro psychedelic, said Misha. Well, yes, well, you have to sit here and listen. You have to wait and find out if he is or not. I don't know where he is. So I'm hoping, nope, he's not there. He's going to, there, I'm going to request, try it that way. We're two reporters, two writers, and we're trying to figure it out. Somebody just said, you're a Democrat. What's that got to do with anything? Michael, press the camera button. Tell him to hit the camera button. Michael Pollan, hit the video icon. I love this. Visited Centerville yesterday. I love Centerville. I just requested him again, Michael Pollan. Oh, wait a second. Let's try him again. Let's send a request again. All you have to do is hit the button, Michael. And then, there you are.
Here we go.
There you are.
Sorry, it's my first Instagram Live.
Oh,
I didn't know what I was doing.
I'm so excited to be somebody's first.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'll take it. I'll be so happy all day long. Thank you for making the effort. Thank you for joining us. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Well, likewise. It's very nice to meet you.
I'm so excited. I have your other book, How to Change Your Mind. And then this one, I was just talking about, This Is Your Mind on Plants, which has just come out. And so much has changed, Michael, since your last book, which was 2018. What do you think is the biggest difference between when you published that book to this book right now?
Well, when I published How to Change Your Mind, psychedelics were considered a very fringe topic, and
right.
And still carried all that 60s baggage of craziness and counterculture disruption. And within 3 years, psychedelics has become legitimized as a very promising pathway to treat mental health. People are willing to come out of the closet to a much greater extent and talk about their experience. A whole generation of scientists are devoting their careers to studying psychedelics and trying to figure out how they can help us deal with this mental health crisis we face, as well as help us understand the mind.
Yeah, I think how to understand the mind is such a big question, right? It's so complex. I talk a lot about the brain, the mind, but kind of having doctors say that they want to research now psychedelics, that makes it far more legitimate for people, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And there are a lot of establishment figures in psychiatry and psychology who are really embracing the possibilities of psychedelics. When I published that book, I expected a lot of pushback from the kind of mental health establishment. And I was very surprised when I didn't get it. And to the contrary, they were all very interested in the work. They said there's still more research that needs to be done. We haven't yet gone through phase 3 trials, which is the last step toward FDA approval. And I was curious why they were so open to a drug that many people perceive as making you crazy, not helping you with your mental health difficulties. And I learned that basically mental health treatment is broken in this country badly, and the tools that psychologists and other kinds of therapists have to treat mental health are just really not very good.
Right.
Basically we have a suite of drugs that address symptoms, not causes. People, SSRIs, antidepressants, are the most popular treatment, but people don't like taking them, and they have lots of side effects, and they're essentially addictive. They're very hard to get off.
Yeah.
So the field knows that it needs help, and along comes this new old medicine, psilocybin, MDMA, and the results of the research are very encouraging so far.
What about, Michael, though so many people say, like, okay, now you're just advocating for one more drug. You're just telling people to get high, take a trip. It's really dangerous. This is taking us down the exact wrong road.
Well, before I tried these drugs, I did not try them at the age-appropriate time in life. I didn't try them in college. I didn't try them until I was in my late 50s. I was, a grown-up with a family and I wanted to really study the risk profile. What was I getting myself into? I was very surprised by what I learned. first of all, the classic psychedelics like LSD and psilocybin and DMT, which is in ayahuasca, are virtually non-toxic. There's no lethal dose. You can't overdose on those psychedelics.
So you can have a bad trip on them.
You can have a bad trip. The biggest risk is psychological, and that is the bad trip. Although when you do it with proper set and setting, and you're not doing it alone at a concert or at a party, but you're working with a guide or a facilitator or a therapist who is taking care of you, creating this safe space, the chances of a bad trip go way, way down. Timothy Leary famously said that set and setting were very important in the use of these medicines. And he's absolutely right. Set means your mindset going into the experience. Setting means the physical setting you're in. Do you feel safe and comfortable? Yeah. And so you can minimize the chances of a bad trip. Not to say that negative things won't happen. They're very often are very scary passages. And people do confront their demons very often, or earlier trauma. But the therapists don't call that a bad trip. They call it a challenging trip, because a lot of very good can come out of that.
You write, and I thought it was certainly very interesting that many people, you know, have minds that ruminate, or they're stuck in their depression, or they can't seem to lift themselves out, even though they may be taking kind of drugs that are prescribed for them by their doctors. And yet they may take mushrooms, or they may go on an ayahuasca trip, and all of a sudden the grooves are shifted.
Yeah.
Their thinking is shifted. And all of a sudden they have a completely different outlook on life.
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be what's going on in your mind, in that the drugs seem to break habitual forms of thought and behavior. So one of the things that happens on a high dose of a psychedelic is what's called ego dissolution, or softening of your ego. Your sense of self gets very soft and permeable. And it is your ego that very often is telling you these destructive stories. You know, we all have these narratives in our head, and they're often highly self-critical. They're telling us we're unworthy of love, or our work stinks, or whatever it is. And we get trapped in those patterns. And what the psychedelics seem to do is dislodge that and kind of shake things up. Shaking the snow globe, as one of the doctors put it to me.
What was your mind telling you that psychedelics shook up for you?
Well, you know, I didn't go into it hoping to fix something or a problem. Sometimes I would go into it saying, I really want to think about my late father, or I want to think about this problem. But I wasn't. It wasn't like I had a rumination problem that I wanted to deal with. It did, though. I did have one experience of like complete ego dissolution. This is going to sound weird, but I saw myself explode in a little cloud of Post-it notes that then fell to the ground and turned into this puddle of blue paint. And that was me, and I was dead, but I was still alive observing this. I know it sounds crazy. But I was, and it seemed right. There was no terror. There was no negativity about it at all. It just was kind of, okay, now I am perceiving without a self. And that was a very powerful experience. What it did for me is tell me that I am not identical to this voice in my head we call the ego.
Yeah.
That there are other voices. I don't have to listen to it. It gave me, I mean, you talked earlier about new perspectives. It gave me a new perspective on myself. And ever since, I have a little more distance on my ego. And I kind of recognize when he's up to his old tricks and, you know, being hypercritical or defensive. And I can kind of turn it off better than I ever could before.
You said that in the book you write about, you know, during the pandemic, using one of these plant medicines, mescaline, you know, and that you were, like so many people are really now talking about the anxiety of coming out of the pandemic, the burnout, the looking at work in a completely different way, looking at their life in a completely different way. And what did this do for you in the pandemic? What were you feeling in the pandemic, and how did it impact you at that specific moment in time?
Yeah, so one of the medicines in the book I wanted to deal with, the book deals with 3 plant psychoactives. Caffeine, which we get from coffee and tea, opium, which we get from the opium poppy, and mescaline, which we get from a couple different kinds of cactus. And I was writing a chapter on mescaline when the pandemic hit, and I couldn't go. I wanted to participate in a peyote ceremony with the Native Americans in Texas, and I couldn't go. I managed to get a hold of some synthetic mescaline, which is a classic psychedelic. And it was very interesting. During the COVID, I felt very claustrophobic. I usually travel a lot. I like to be out. I'm a journalist. I like to meet people. And I was doing everything on Zoom. And I felt like my world had contracted to this, little nutshell. Mm-hmm. And mescaline, I thought, would take me away, far away. And it would be like, I don't know, on some other drugs, you visit unseen worlds and encounter creatures, in other dimensions and that kind of stuff. It was nothing like that. It really surprised me. What it did was make the here and now, the place where I was, so much more interesting, so much more profound, so much deeper than it had ever been. And reality as it was given just became fascinating. And I had no need of anything else. There was this kind of sense of sufficiency of reality. It was, I call it haiku consciousness. It was that kind of like awareness of the ordinary and how gorgeous it is. It's a kind of a Zen approach to, looking at a flower, picking up a glass of water. It was all just stunningly interesting and beautiful. I didn't have to go anywhere.
Somebody here says mescaline gives you more insight into your current reality. Other people are saying, I've always been really afraid of drugs. So I'm really scared to try this.
Too. I mean, I am not your psychonaut. I mean, I had so much fear before every one of my psychedelic experiences. I did them really as part of my research. And because I was curious, I had interviewed so many people who had had these transformative life experiences on a single dose of a chemical. How does that happen? I had to find out. But I was terrified, I have to say. I mean, our minds are one of the scariest places to go. And
how does that happen? You said that you hear people saying, I had this life transforming experience.
Well, I don't think
ayahuasca or mushrooms or,
I don't think we completely understand, but we have some sense. There is a network in your brain called the default mode network. It connects the frontal cortex, which has a lot of executive function, to older, deeper parts of the brain. And it's very closely involved in your sense of self. It's where time travel takes place. If you don't have a sense of your past or your future, you don't exist. You don't have an identity. And that time travel happens there. The writing of narratives about who we are happens there. And what psychedelics appear to do is take the default network offline. And so you have this period where your usual sense of self is suspended. And old patterns break down and new patterns of communication are established. So they've actually taken scans of brains with people on psychedelics. And there is all this new connection that happens. So your visual cortex might be talking to your hippocampus where your memories are. So you might see things, or your auditory center might talk to your visual center, and you might see musical notes. And so you have all this new wiring that's only temporary, but it creates an opportunity, I think, for new patterns to get established. And those new patterns can be very helpful.
Are you advocating with these books? Do you want people, is your mission out there to get people to look at psychedelics in a new way? Or is your mission to get them legalized? Is it that you want them made available to everybody? Is it you want to shake up the pharmaceutical industry? Or do you want to fix the opioid problem? Do you have a mission with these books?
My mission is only that we take a really good hard look as a society, that there is enough research that's been done. Peer-reviewed papers have come out to suggest that psilocybin and MDMA, these are the first two substances that have been tried. MDMA is also known as ecstasy or Molly, that they are, in fact, not very dangerous. MDMA a little more dangerous than psilocybin, that they're not habit forming, and that they have the potential, in fact, to break other addictions. Psilocybin has been used successfully to treat smoking addiction and alcohol addiction and cocaine addiction. So it sounds weird to people that one drug might treat another. Yeah. My agenda, though, is to just get us to take a look. We're in desperate straits. Mental health is in crisis. The numbers of people with depression, anxieties, and suicidality are skyrocketing. And, the mental health field has not had much success dealing with this. Here, I think, is a potential game changer. It could revolutionize mental health treatment. But before it does, we need to support the research. And if I have an agenda, it's that, yes, people step forward and the government steps forward and funds the research so we can find out for sure if these substances are as promising as they appear.
When you say these substances, these plants could be game changers, could revolutionize the industry, take me down that road. Are you thinking that they could deal with the opioid problem? They could break people's addictions. I know there's a lot of research going on with vets. And
yes,
trying to help
that's
them
very encouraging. So, a study was recently published in Nature Medicine of MDMA, being used to treat PTSD, both in soldiers and people who had suffered sexual assault. They have two sessions. Okay, these are not drugs you take every day for the rest of your life, like an SSRI. These are experiences, even more than they're drugs. They're very big experiences, and the experience is what's therapeutic. So after 2 sessions with MDMA, these people who had measurable degrees of PTSD no longer had PTSD. They no longer met the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder. This is remarkable. We have nothing else like it. And so I think that we have to look at it. There's so many people dealing with trauma. In the case of psilocybin, we've had great success treating addiction. There are trials underway with some encouraging preliminary results treating depression, which is the biggest mental health problem. Yeah. There's a trial underway to treat eating disorders, which I didn't realize is the most lethal of all mental health problems. We have nothing to deal with eating disorders, really. What else? Chronic rumination is something that they're going to look at. Oh, and obsessive compulsive disorder. There's a trial happening right now at Yale that is I've talked to some of the patients and they're getting very good results there.
Is there any difference? Have you heard of any difference of how these plants work with different genders? Is there any research being done on that? Because when we look at most of the people on SSRIs are predominantly women, and particularly women, as they get older, end up more and more prescribed. Women often talk about being prescribed and, every time they go to a therapist or they go to a doctor, they're given a prescription for something, as you said, that's supposed to be for 2 weeks, and then 10 years later, they're still on it. Is there any research that talks about the effects of plants on different genders?
No, the trials that I know of have been pretty equal, male, female. And I don't think I have not heard any researchers say, I've never asked this question, whether they're seeing real differences. In general, in the psychedelic community outside of medicine, men take psychedelics more often than women. But I think that just has to do with a higher tolerance for risk-taking behavior on the part of men. There's no other explanation I could think of, but I have spoken to many women, some very close to me in my life, who've been helped enormously by MDMA in particular.
So tell me, Michael, if you kind of project 2-3 years out, do you see this as a tool that most therapists, psychiatrists will be using? Because so often people have said, I went and there was this shaman over there and they had no experience. And I went down to Costa Rica and there was all this sort of, there's tons of places around, and how do people know what it is? And they pay a certain amount of money and then, they're in some crazy situation.
Yeah, no, I would not encourage people to do that kind of thing. I think that these drugs are working their way through the FDA approval process. MDMA is expected to be approved within 2 years. Psilocybin will take maybe another 2 years after that. At that point, doctors will be able to prescribe it. But you're not going to go to the CVS and get a prescription for psilocybin. It's a package. It's therapy and the medicine. So you need somebody to prepare you very carefully, sit with you during the entire experience, and then help you make sense of it afterwards. So it really should be called psychedelic assisted psychotherapy rather than psychedelic therapy. And I think, yes, I think that there will be, I don't know that all therapists will be doing this, because it's a real challenge to the business model of both the pharmaceutical industry and therapists, both of whom depend on you being, needing them for years and years and years and years. The drug you take every day and the therapist you see every week forever. So this involves an intense amount of therapy over the course of a couple days, and then that's it. So people are going to have to, it's a square peg going into a round hole. They're going to have to figure out how to organize their businesses, and how's the pharmaceutical companies going to make money on a pill you only take once or twice in your life? All these.
There's a lot of politics in here too, right? I mean, you talk a little bit about the politics for Native Americans with mescaline, but in different states, there's different politics, different laws around this. You have people
once we have FDA approval, it will be the same across the country. That's why that's so important. It also will mean that people will have access, because if it works and it's economical, the insurance companies will have to pay for it. And that's the best way to make it accessible. Right now, psychedelic therapy is a pretty elite thing to do. It's expensive.
Right. The other thing that I thought was certainly very interesting, I know you're on a big book tour, so I won't keep you so long, but kind of positioning caffeine as a drug. You talk in the book about that the government decides what's an illicit drug, but you want people to think about caffeine, what we drink in coffee, as a drug, sugar as a drug, right? That we think of these things, oh, they're just in my food, or it's just what I drink, but you're making the argument that these are as powerful in their own way as some of the plant medicines that are viewed as illicit.
Yeah, I mean, look at caffeine. Here is a drug, a psychoactive drug that changes your consciousness in a very transparent way, or so it feels that way, that 90% of us are involved with on a daily basis. We are mostly addicted to it. And so I want people to see that drugs are just not these scary things out there. There's a whole range of these substances, mostly produced by plants. We take them into our body. They do good or bad things, depending on how we use them. And that we all have these relationships with these plants, even though we don't think about coffee or tea that way. For that chapter, rather than try a drug, I was already hooked on caffeine. So I abstained for 3 months. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I really hated it. And the reason was I couldn't concentrate very well. I had very poor sense of focus, and it made it impossible to write. But even after a month or 2 months, I still didn't feel quite myself. And what does that mean? Well, what it meant is my default is caffeinated consciousness. And I liked it. And that's where I live. And I don't want to give it up. So, I'm back on.
But I think what's a really great thing is that you're asking us to look at everything in a way with different eyes, with a more open mind. So before we go and say, mushrooms are terrible and oh my God, well, what's the difference between that and caffeine? Or what's the difference between that and sugar, which is, I've tried desperately to get off of sugar, right? Or these things, but we look to the government to say, that's bad. That's a Schedule I drug. Right. And so it's really kind of how we're approaching it, and whether we're doing it under the guidance you're saying of a professional, but that things aren't as simple as we might have.
No, and you know what? In the future, they're going to be much less simple, because the drug war is ending without question. I mean, you saw this in the 2020 election. Oregon decriminalized all drugs. They legalized psilocybin therapy. This is the California state legislature has just, one house has passed, has legalized psychedelics. So this is coming. And I think what I'm trying to do in this book is get ahead of the conversation a little bit. Now that the drug war is ending, what does the drug peace look like? how do we renegotiate our relationships with these powerful substances? Because they do pose dangers. We have to approach them with great care. But it's not just going to be the government saying this is bad, this is good. They tried that. It worked terribly. It put hundreds of thousands of people in jail. It heavily discriminated against communities of color, and it stole our civil liberties. Fighting the drug war. Well, that approach is over, or will be over soon. The next approach is, how does culture navigate these questions? How does culture decide this is the way you use a psychedelic? This is a bad thing. I mean, if you think about alcohol, we have a set of rituals, right, in culture. I mean, yes, we have some laws too. You can't drink and drive. But, people who follow the rituals around alcohol, who, they don't drink during the day, they only drink at night with other people, with food, those are not the people who get in trouble with alcohol. And we need to come up with the same rituals for cannabis, for psychedelics, even, I dare say, for opium.
Wow, drug peace. I like that. We have to negotiate what a drug peace looks like. Michael Pollan, thank you so much. The book is This Is Your Mind on Plants. It just came out. It's a beautiful cover. You are an extraordinary reporter. I had your book a couple years ago, and I've wanted to talk to you for a couple years.
Glad we finally made it happen.
I'm glad. I sat next to your sister at dinner, and I said, I've been trying to talk to your brother for years.
I'm glad it happened.
I'm glad it happened too, and I'm glad to be your first Instagram Live. I'm sure in promoting this book, you'll do many more. But thank you. We're going to put this up in the Sunday paper so people can watch it, and put it up on YouTube so that people will be able to sit with it and think about what you're talking about, talk to their family members about it if they are on different prescriptions themselves. They can go to their therapist perhaps to talk about it. And is there any place that people can go finally to get a lot of information if they want to get off of some drugs that they might be on and find a therapy assisted doctor who this?
Well, I have on my website, michaelpollan.com, a resources page that has a lot of information about psychedelics and how to use them safely, and studies that are going on around the country. So that would be a good place to start. michaelpollan.com, resources.
michaelpollan.com, resources. We'll put that up too. michaelpollan.com. Thank you so much. Thank you for your incredible
Thank you,
work.
Maria.
Thank you
Pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure talking to you too.
And thanks to everybody who listened in.
Thank you. See you later. Okay, well, there you have it. That's the new book. And as I said, we'll put it up, and he'll put up on michaelpollan.com under resources. If you have questions about psychedelics, if you have questions, if you're on certain SSRIs, if you're on other things for panic or anxiety, this might be something that you want to talk to your therapist about, and you can go to michaelpollan.com to resources there to find people who might be in your area who are working in this space and who know a lot about it. But he has done incredible research for the last several years on these plant medicines, and this industry, this entire space is changing rapidly right underneath of our feet, underneath of our eyes. And so he is one of the people leading the way. So this is a great book if you're interested in that space. And if you find yourself in need of something or in need of a different way of thinking or living, it's something to look into. I'm not advocating it, but it's something to look into. There's a lot out there that can help you. So I just want to say there's also a young woman on here, I think, who's from Best Buddies, who keeps commenting to me. So I want to thank her and shout out to all the people who are in Best Buddies, all the volunteers, and all the people who consider themselves a member of that community. So she's on there. I think it's a she, I'm not sure. So I see you. I've seen your comments, and I just wanted you to know that I saw you. Anyway, thank you all so much for listening. Remember, this will be in the Sunday paper. It's free every Sunday, your go-to source for insight, inspiration, and information. Join us. We're a great community, and it's free. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a good day.